is my name. Welcome back to the second hour of this Wednesday edition of Focal Point. I want to talk at the beginning of the second hour again about some values issues, and you may be interested in weighing in on this when we go back to the phones, 888-589-8840. A couple of quick pieces that you might want to react to and respond to. Number one, I'm looking at a piece here, Christianity Today, on interfaith marriage. And the question, and they ask three writers to contribute, is interfaith marriage always wrong? Teaching, given that the Bible teaches us not to be unequally yoked. Now, it's my view that it is. You know, the scriptures are very clear. Do not give your sons to be married to their daughters, or give your daughters to be married to their sons. Do not allow your daughters to marry their sons. Don't have your son marry their daughters. Don't intermarry. Very, very clear. Paul says, 1 Corinthians 7, you're free to marry anybody you want, only in the Lord. But one of the problems, and so I'm curious what you think about that, and the research indicates that people that are in interfaith marriages are the least happy people on the planet. There's much less marital satisfaction among those that have different faith traditions and are married to each other. But this is Mark Regnerus. I've cited his research a lot. He's a sociologist at the University of Texas at Austin. And he said that quality survey data reveals that there are only 2 serious church-going evangelical men for every 3 comparable women. Now, I know from my own experience this is a huge problem. For young women, evangelical women, strong in their faith, they can't find a guy who is as committed to God as they are. And so it makes it appealing to them to start thinking about marrying outside the faith because they'd like to get married, and they can't find somebody that's as strong in the faith as they are. So 1 out of every 3, think about that, 33% of evangelical women right now are not in a position to marry somebody who is their spiritual equal or who could serve as a spiritual head. He goes on to say that according to a survey that he commissioned in 2010, 42% of marriages today are between people from 2 different faith traditions. But he adds this: partners in interfaith marriages are generally less satisfied with their relationships than those in same faith marriages. And he says, I found that the biggest gap in marital satisfaction was for evangelicals married to non-evangelicals. About 30% of evangelical Christians are married to someone of another faith. Roughly 1/3 of all evangelicals' marriages end in divorce, and that climbs to nearly half for marriages between evangelicals and non-evangelicals. So those that are in interfaith marriages, when one is an evangelical, they are the least happy of all of the interfaith married couples that he knows, and their divorce rate is considerably higher. Then I've got another piece here written by Julia Shaw, posted at slate.com, which is a winger left, hardcore winger left, and she writes about getting married at 23 and says, what are the rest of you waiting for? It's an argument on her part, and it's a great piece, great article, on the value, the benefit of marrying young. She was 23 when she got married. Her husband was 25, but only 21% of millennials, these are people that are 18 to 29 right now, are married. And the median age now is the highest it's ever been, 27 for women and 29 for men. That's the median age at which millennials are getting married, 27 and 29, and only 21% are even married. By comparison, Generation X, the generation that came before them, 29% of them are married. 42% of boomers were married by the, by late 20s. And the silent generation, it was 54% were married by, I'm trying to figure out what the age, I think it's late 20s, were married by their late 20s. Anyway, you can see this decline. The greatest generation, the silent generation, 54% were married by their late 20s. It drops to 42% with the baby boomer generation. Drops to 29% with Generation X and down to 21% for millennials. And she writes about the fact that it was a rich experience for her to be married at an early age because they could go through life together. And I want to read just a couple of excerpts. I want to take some phone calls here. But she says, the typical pattern is singles think you go through life, you're in your 20s, this is the time to have fun. You play the field, you backpack Europe, you have a bartending gig to supplement an unpaid internship, you finish school, you get on a career path, and then you're ready for marriage. And she said, we did it exactly the other way around. We hadn't arrived when we got married. I had a job, he had a job offer, and a year left in law school. We couldn't buy a house or even replace the car when it died. We lived in a small basement apartment, furnished with secondhand IKEA furniture. We did not even have internet. Check email. We had to go to a local coffee shop. We didn't have reliable heat. Marriage wasn't something we did after we'd grown up. It was how we have grown up and grown together. And I've got more. Maybe I'll come back and read some of that for you in the second segment today. But it's a beautiful, beautiful column about how getting married at a young age to the right person. Don't run out and find the first person that's willing to marry. I'm not talking about that. But marrying at an early age, you forge a life together. You go through the challenges of building your life virtually from nothing. You go through that together. I'm telling you, when Debbie and I got out of grad school, we had nothing. We didn't have 2 nickels to rub together. So everything that we have built together by serving each other, by working hard, by being committed to each other, by making sacrifices, and I wouldn't trade that for any experience in the world. Well, let's go to the phones, 888-589-8840. Let's go to Frank in Kentucky. Thank you for calling. Thanks for waiting. Frank, what's on your mind?
Hi, Brian.
Hey.
I thank you for your show.
You're welcome.
Program, rather. You were mentioning about Liz Cheney.
Yes.
I tell you, over the past years, I've heard that Liz, now this was on the news, they're saying that Liz Cheney is a lesbian.
No, I don't think that's accurate. She's happily married. She's got like several kids.
Yeah,
So I don't think that's accurate information.
Have you ever heard that on the news anywhere?
No, I haven't. That would be news to me, and I don't think that's accurate information. She has a sister who is a lesbian. There is another Cheney. She's got a sister who is. Her name is Mary. She's a lesbian, but Liz Cheney herself is not.
Yeah, I don't like to put the conflict in.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the issue for them, and that complicates things for a lot of people. If they have somebody in their family that is homosexual, they think they're obligated then to support the homosexual agenda. Well, it's just absurd. If you got a bank robber in the family, that doesn't mean you automatically have to support bank robbing as a lifestyle choice. If you've got a drug dealer in the family, that doesn't automatically mean that you're going to support drug dealing as a profession. So it's an absurd argument, but it has a pretty strong emotional appeal, and that may have affected Dick Cheney's view of same-sex marriage and may well have affected Liz Cheney's view of same-sex marriage.
A lot of these judges that support homosexual marriages, they're homosexuals as well. And, you found out they are just as evil as the rest of them are.
Well, and you have some cases where you've got clerks, even for Supreme Court justices, who are homosexual activists, and they're the ones that do a lot of the research. They do a lot of the writing. Most of these opinions are actually written by law clerks, not written by the justices themselves. And so there's no question that if they're strategically placed and you've got an individual, it's a nice person, he cares about people, he wants to be sympathetic toward them, it could affect his judgment. There's no question about it. All right, Frank, listen, I appreciate the call. Thank you for that. We'll be right back with more Focal Point AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. 888-589-8840. Back in 2.